Kim, as I said, is the executive director, and we are very, very excited that she is here with us today to talk about not only the new report that will be released today regarding the status of children in the District of Columbia, but just a little bit more of what's been happening, particularly, I mean, Kim, welcome to the show, first of all.
Thanks, Denise. I'm so glad that you had us on. Thank you so much.
Sure, sure. I mean, everybody is, I mean, for the most part, when we think about Christmas and we think about toys and trying to make children smile, that's for a day. You all focus on children's lives 365 days of the year. Tell us what, one, a little bit more about DC Action for Kids, and then what you all have been working on.
Yeah, thank you so much. Well, we're just pleased to be able to talk with you today and to get this message out to your viewers and your readers and the whole Washington Informer family. So DC Action for Children is a 27-year-old advocacy organization. We're a nonprofit, we are nonpartisan, but we look out for kids' issues and what's impacting our young children from really early childhood to early adulthood. We merged earlier this year with the DC Alliance of Youth Advocates, and together we are able to create a more stronger and independent voice for our young people. And Denise, this is no surprise to you because I know you've followed DC Action for such a long time, and we appreciate that. Together, we all believe that our young people really can accomplish anything if they're given a fair chance. But the fact is, we know that so much really does stand in their way, and particularly those who are affected by poverty, which of course is the result of a long legacy of systemic racism in this country. So we believe that these are powerful injustices and they really have to be met with an equally powerful response. DC Action is also the home of DC Kids Count, part of the Annie E. Casey national network of Kids Count. And Kids Count tracks the well-being of the district's children and youth and our kids all across the country. So in the entire Kids Count database, there are thousands of indicators of child and youth well-being. One of the reports that came out earlier this week really was looking at how our kids are faring in the time of COVID. And I'm happy that you had Polly on earlier. Ms. Donaldson, we all know, does her very best to be an advocate for families in the District of Columbia. And I was relieved and happy to hear her talk about all the resources that are available for the district's families. And we're certainly going to have to get word out, because one of the findings in the Kids Count report this year is that 1 out of 5 district families are worried about paying their rent or making the next mortgage payment. So families are feeling the brunt of the pandemic. It has really stressed the district's families, and it has stretched families all across the district as well. So we have families who typically would be giving to a food pantry this time of year. Instead, they are in line at the food pantry for groceries.
And
We have many.
it's clear because children feel and experience this stress as well,
Absolutely.
and particularly, like you said, during COVID, when they're home so much more now, and they are seeing what's going on in the environment while at the same time they're trying to do school.
Yeah.
Right. And so I guess the report even talks about that, the impact that it's having on education, health. Keep going. I just wanted to add that part.
No, you're absolutely right. So really the pandemic has just exploited and further exacerbated all the inequities we knew existed beforehand. So much of what this report tells us is that the problems are not only exacerbated, but it also reminds us to go back and look at what the conditions for kids were even prior to the pandemic. So I do want to mention a little bit of that. In our local DC Kids Count, we published pre-pandemic data, and we realized that even at a time when the district The district's prosperity was greater post the earlier um, post 2008, for example, when we had that recession, the district was able to come back even stronger. But Black and Brown residents still were earning less money and didn't have equal access to medical care, childcare, and education, which, of course, we are seeing play out now in the midst of the pandemic. I also think it's worth noting our Black youth are over policed at a higher risk, or excuse me, at a higher rate than our white kids, and our Black kids are at higher risk for suicide than white youth. A couple other things I want to note, because this always comes out in the conversation about education, is that folks will say pre-pandemic, the district was doing much better in education. If you take reading, for example, that everybody is reading at much higher rates. Well, if you pull back the curtain and look a little deeper, as we've done by disaggregating data by race, we find that while white students are reading at 76% proficiency, which is great, our Black students, on the other hand, are only reading at 24%, and our Latinx students at 29%. So that gap is widening. I mean, we're talking about more than a 50% gap and difference. Which is really troubling, right? And again, knowing that the pandemic is only exacerbating that even more. So we really believe,
Kim, if
Denise,
I can,
I just wanted to say, we really believe this data is a starting point for making sure that the city's leaders and lawmakers are able to prioritize public investment and public funding based on where the pain points really are for our kids and youth.
one of the things that used to frustrate me a lot, and like you said, I've been following this for a long time, and every year the our National Children's Defense Fund would put out its report, and every year it always talked about how far behind our Black children are. And so what you're sharing, really, a lot of it is discouraging, but and not new. I think the challenge for us now, because so many people have stepped up for various reasons, is solutions. What do we do? We know that government has played its role, clearly not enough, and nonprofit organizations are playing their role to some degree, maybe having some success. But what are you all thinking that needs more people need to do to improve the quality of life for our children?
Yeah, there's two things we've got to pay attention to, actually three. One is the data. So the data we're presenting via our Kids Count reports, it's telling us where the pain points are. I'm not sure we're listening, right? It also means that the solutions have to lie in things like early education. Denise, we know that this equity starts at birth. We can't deploy solutions during school age or just later. We need to be able to start as early as possible. The one thing I do want to mention as we talk about our early education system, it too is really fragile right now. We just released a report earlier today, the results of a survey that we put out to our childcare programs across the city. And what we're learning is that our childcare system, our early care and education system, is on the verge of collapse if we don't have some serious, significant resources to help provide relief. Childcare programs expenses are rising because they are putting into practice COVID safe conditions for kids who are in their care and who are learning, but their income has gone down because fewer families are sending their kids back. So we have got to provide some financial support in an expedient way to ensure we don't lose the childcare system. Workers desperately need to get back to work when there is a vaccine, and to make sure our kids don't experience even more learning loss than they have since the pandemic started.
Well, I mean, this is there's no magic wand, I'll say, and we wish there was, but we are going to continue to look at this and see what we can do to galvanize communities around the data that you have provided. I think it's fantastic that you were able to join us today when you released a report earlier today, so quite timely for you to do that. And we know that if we don't take care of our children today, it will definitely impact our communities tomorrow. And so, Kim, thank you so much for being with us and for carrying, waving the flag and sending up the warning signs that we need to do something now. And feel free to come back. And as we look at what happens in the transition when we become post-pandemic and what's going to happen. So thanks a lot for joining us.
Thank you so much, Denise. And I encourage everyone to visit dcactionforchildren.org. You can find both the National Kids Count Report, our DC Kids Count Report, and the Child Care Survey that was released today. And please call your local DC council members and let them know that the child care system needs funding right away. If it's going to be there, be intact, and be sustainable for when workers are ready to go back to work.
Wonderful. Thanks for that. Okay.